So you're advancing your business well, and you've come to the point now where you need to decide what type of company structure are you going to put around the business. Is it going to be an S corporation, a C corporation? How about a limited liability company? But it's time now to put into place that legal structure and platform that's going to carry your business forward into the future. My name is Carlos Heredia from yourgreatbusiness.com, and in this video we're going to help you with the challenge of deciding what type of company is right for your business going forward. And this is something that many entrepreneurs and small business owners struggle with as they're pushing their business forward. This morning I had coffee with an entrepreneur who seems to have a very promising business concept, and we talked for about an hour, and he very excited and passionate about his business opportunity, and he's making good progress. So at one point I asked him, what have you done in terms of setting up a company and putting some structure around the business that you're creating? And he said, well, Carlos, you're going to love this. I'm in the process of setting up a limited liability company on LegalZoom. Unfortunately, I've run into some snags in the process where the name that I chose is in conflict with an existing LLC, and so it's getting bogged down, and we're working through that. And I said, that can happen. But I asked him, why did you choose a limited liability company? What was your thought process there? And why are you using LegalZoom to help you out? Well, as to the LLC, he said, well, I have this business advisor, and the business advisor told me, it really doesn't matter what type of company you set up, just go and set up an LLC. So that's what I'm doing. And I said, why LegalZoom? He said, well, I've got so much to do with this business, and things are really taking off. I just want to get something formed. I want to get it formed quickly, and just struck me that LegalZoom was my best alternative to do that. So it was a really timely meeting for me in terms of preparing this video for you, because he highlighted two issues that I see happen all the time with entrepreneurs. The first one is that many people are misinformed about what type of entity is the best one for their business. And people are busy, we're all busy, and there's a lot of information on the internet, and your business mentor or your friends or business colleagues all have an opinion about what type of entity to choose. And because you're busy and you want to check that legal setup off on your to-do list, many people move very quickly and don't take the time to dig in and do their homework and understand really what's the right type of company for their business. So in this video, I'm going to provide an overview of some important issues that you should consider when making that selection or that choice as to the type of company that's going to be best for your business going forward into the future. Now, this is an overview, so I want to help you narrow your choices and maybe even help you decide on what entity is the right one, and so that you can dig deeper, talk with your accountant, and really make sure that you're getting the proper start to your business. So let's look at the different issues that you should consider when forming your company. So this summary provides a good overview of some key issues that you should consider when trying to decide between a C Corp, an S Corp, or a limited liability company. I've also included the sole proprietorship here because before you form the company, as in the example of the entrepreneur that I mentioned earlier, you're a sole proprietor. So one of the key considerations that you should think about is how will my new company allow me to raise money into the future? Many businesses, when they get formed, need to think about future financing and investment opportunities, and it's important to compare the three alternatives, thinking about future funding or raising money opportunities in the future. So I'll quickly go through this list and then move on to some additional issues that you should consider. So if you're raising money and bringing on investors, and even in the early rounds, the seed financing rounds or a friends and family round, I think that the C corporation is going to give you the most flexibility. And the C corp is important because it's not restricted in terms of the number of shareholders or the type of shareholders. They can be foreigners, they can be individuals, they can be other companies that serve as shareholders. And the good thing about a corporation is that people are familiar with the corporation, or generally familiar with the corporation and how they're structured. And there's a long history of the types of investment structures and documents that are used to bring in those early rounds of funding into companies. So by having a corporation, and specifically a C corporation, you can more cost effectively and more quickly bring that initial capital into your company. Now for an S corp, I said maybe, and really the S corp will perform the same as the C corp. The only difference is that there are some restrictions as to who can be shareholders of an S corp. You're limited to 100 shareholders, for example, and you're limited to U.S. individuals as being the shareholders. So that if you're bringing in foreign money or you're taking in money from another company, the S corp won't work. You certainly can raise money also with an LLC, but I put maybe here because if you start to take on more than just a couple of investors, it can get pretty complicated with the limited liability company structure and the operating agreement and just putting the investment documents into place. It's just less known, and I think it will be tends to be more costly and more complicated to use an LLC to bring in investment. If you believe that your company will need venture capital funding in the future, then the alternative that you should select is a C corp. Now you can pick an S corp and convert it into a C corp at some later point, but the C corp is the entity, the type of entity or the type of company that you will need to use if you're bringing in investment from venture capitalists. The S corp and the LLC won't work because many of the investors that put their money into the venture capital funds have certain tax restrictions. They may be tax exempt organizations, and they can't. They will have some financial complications if the venture capital fund ends up investing in an S corp or an LLC, which has this pass-through taxation component. Now, if you are thinking about equity crowdfunding, and as of today, equity crowdfunding isn't in place, but if you're thinking about equity crowdfunding as a possible way to raise money in the future and want that opportunity, then I again believe that the C corp is going to be the right type of company for you. Corporations are built to have a lot of shareholders, and they have an unlimited life, and shares can be transferred freely among different shareholders, and if someone dies, the shares can be transferred to their heirs. So corporations are built to have a lot of owners. The reason why it's no again for the S corp is because an S corp is limited to 100 stockholders, and with equity crowdfunding, that number may not work if you start to get a lot of investors. And down the road, if you're thinking about taking your company public, the C corporation is going to be the right type of entity to make that happen. If your company is on track or will be on track to have an initial public offering and sell shares to the public. So if your company is going to have the need to bring in outside investment and raise external financing, all other things being equal, the C corporation is going to be your best alternative to make that happen. So another issue that many companies should consider is, what if you want to provide equity incentives to motivate and retain your employees? So you think that you may have a need to set up stock option plans so that you can give your employees stock options, or you want to give them restricted stock grants in the future, but give them a piece of the equity ownership so that they can be motivated to help advance the company and maybe even enjoy some of the upside in the future if the company is sold. So this is a very important point to consider when selecting the type of the entity that's going to be right for your business. So if you want to set up a stock option plan, the C Corp definitely works. And one thing that many people overlook, especially when they form a limited liability company, is that incentive stock options, which have the potential to be more tax favorable for the employees, are only available if the stock option is given through a corporation. They're not available for an LLC. And also with a C corporation, if you have multiple classes of stock, let's say that down the road you have preferred stock and you have your existing common stock, you might be able to give some favorable pricing on the options to the employees because of the different classes of stock that you have. And the other point about the corporation is that employees tend to understand how corporations work, less so with limited liability companies. So all in all, the corporation is the right type of company if you plan to give equity to your employees. Now, I wrote yes, no here for the S Corp because the S Corp still can give ISOs or incentive stock options to employees, but because an S Corp only is allowed to have one class of stock, you may not be able to structure your option pricing in a way such that you have the difference between the pricing and the preferred stock and the common stock. So it may not be as favorable in terms of giving more favorable option pricing to your employees. So another issue to consider is thinking down the road about possible exit opportunities for your company. And this is an issue that many people overlook at the initial stage because they're focused on getting their company started and not really thinking about into the future about selling their company and what that might mean. But the C Corporation, and only the C Corporation, offers an interesting tax advantage over the other company alternatives. And if your stock qualifies as qualified small business stock, then if you hold the stock for 5 years and your business is operating as an active business in the proper industry space, if you sell the company after holding the stock for 5 years, you may receive significantly lower capital gains taxes than if you held the stock as an S Corp or an LLC. So this is, if your plan is to start a company and to build it with the idea that you're going to sell it at some point in the future at a significant gain, the C Corporation is something you really should look at because there could be real tax savings and more money in your pocket by setting your company up as a C Corporation. So as you work through trying to decide what type of company is the best alternative for your business, there are some other startup issues that you should be aware of. Certainly money and motivating employees and thinking about what's going to happen on the exit, those are very important things. But what are some of the immediate things that you should think about? So all three of the company alternatives have limited liability protection. So the C Corp and the S Corp and the LLC, it really is 6 of one, half dozen of another. They're all designed to provide you that limited liability protection so that you can keep your personal assets separate and protected from the creditors of your company. So there's an even wash among the three entities in that regard. One of the advantages of an LLC is that there's more flexibility in terms of setting up your company. So if you wanted, for example, to allocate profits and losses to different investors or different owners, you can do that more easily with an LLC. So you can customize the structure and come up with different ways to allocate profits and losses and set up a very customized structure. I just want to make the point, though, that with that customization, there's complexity potentially, and with complexity and customization, there's definitely more cost. So you need to factor that into your decision as to what type of company is right for you. Sometimes it helps just to have that tried and true form of corporation that you know how the building blocks fit together and sometimes that helps facilitate getting the company started, especially if you have multiple founders, and just getting it going in the proper way. So the next issue to consider is simplicity and lower costs. So just building on the point that I made, because the corporation is familiar and well known, it tends to be a more simple process with lower costs to set up a corporation. Now, for LLCs, I mentioned that there's a maybe here, and that maybe is what that means is that if you're forming an LLC with one or two members, it can be a relatively simple exercise, and it can be simple with lower costs. But as you start to increase the number of members or owners of the LLC, it can get increasingly more complex and more costly as you move forward. And the last issue and this is appropriate for some types of businesses, is flow through taxation. So the C Corp, as you probably have heard, has double taxation. So the corporation is taxed, and then any distributions to the shareholders are taxed again. With the S Corp and the LLC, you don't have taxation at the entity level, and any profits and losses flow through to the shareholders or the owners of the company. So there's only a single layer of taxation. So for some types of businesses, that may be a better alternative in terms of how you structure your company. So this has been an overview of some of the key issues to consider when you're at the point of thinking about what type of company should I choose for my business. Hopefully I've helped narrow the choices, or helped you decide what type of company is going to be best for your business going forward. But I strongly encourage you to dig deeper into the issues, to do your homework, talk with your accountant, and confirm that either the C Corp or the S Corp or the LLC is the right type of company for your business. And please don't believe everything that you hear, and really test that decision from a few different angles. We also have other videos and articles that review the pros and cons of each startup company alternative. So I encourage you to take the time to look at some of those additional resources, and would love to hear from you. And if you could let us know below, what type of company do you plan to use, and why? Why did you select that company for your business going forward? So this is Carlos Heredia from yourgreatbusiness.com. I wish you continued success with your great business. Thank you very much.